Hello everyone, this is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this newest episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Tactica Imperialis.
A first jab vaccinated Tactica Imperialis, I'll have you know. Good afternoon everyone, good to see you all, hope you're all doing very well.
I don't know why, but I thought you were going to say good day everyone, for some reason, I don't know why.
I'm British, not Australian, keep up. Although, actually, shout out to some of my students who still to this day make a joke that I'm Australian. You know who you are if you're listening.
Why do they think you're Australian?
I don't know. I'm from Yorkshire. But when you come from outside of that little neck of the woods, apparently wherever you're from is fair blooming game. But yes, I've been called Australian. I've been called all sorts of things by students. And the Australian one apparently stuck because they thought it was funny. It's not funny. But shout out to those students if they happen to be listening.
Fair enough. I mean, one time I had someone who thought I was Belgian for some reason. Don't ask.
I mean, maybe it's because we speak too eloquently for we don't speak Queen's English, but we also speak too eloquently for rough, roadman English, so maybe people just conflate that with people who use English as a second language. I don't zodding know.
Who knows? But anyway, in the news this week, I think the biggest thing this week was the release of AOS 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, so AOS 3, today we're recording this on Saturday 19th. AOS 3 has gone on pre-order today. Just like Indomitus and 40k 9th edition, it is a 2-week pre-order window. So it will be the 3rd of July when everything lands in people's hands. However, if you are someone wishing to experience Age of Sigmar for the first time, then the core rules are available from GW to download for free, which will allow you to pick up and play the game right this second. If you are wanting the full stuff, I know that there have been several leaks on social media. I'm not going to comment on those. I've not really paid them much mind, but I know a lot of the points values from the General's Handbook have also been leaked. So you can probably pick up and do matched play relatively easily if you were so inclined. Sorry. There we go.
Fair enough. Aside from that, what else has there been in the news in regards to the 40k side of things?
Well, I think the big one that threw a lot of people off was on the 11th of June, when we got the latest Horus Heresy Legion dispatch and the reveal of one Argyle Tal.
Oh, yes. And that also leads into the... I think you've seen some of the screenshots, the quote-unquote, the leaks as well.
Yes, We'll discuss that now, actually, since it's been mentioned. We are aware that there have been screenshots of a leaked/suspected Warhammer 30k Horus Heresy boxed game, which seemed to show Sons of Horus versus Imperial Fists. That rumour seems to have gone quiet at the moment, probably because obviously Age of Sigmar coming out means they're not revealing anything right now. The pictures look really cool. And I think that it would be a good idea to do a new Heresy box game. I just wonder when they'll do it, if they do decide to reveal it. I think we'll need to wait until July to get any real confirmation on anything. Looks like a nice idea, though, and we've discussed before the merits of various updates to 30k.
I'll be honest, I'm excited for the possibility of a plastic Spartan.
Yes, that one definitely got a lot of people's interest.
And the new plastic Contemptor with the big missile pod on the top. I forgot what it's called. I was going to say Cyclone, but I'm not sure that's the same model for Contemptors as it is Terminators.
No, it'd be a lot bigger than that. I don't actually remember its name either.
Yeah.
Icarus?
If you know its name, leave a comment below. Anyway.
I mean, I want to say like an Icarus rocket battery or something, but Icarus is what they often use for las cannons, so probably not. But anyway, it is something that is there.
Yes. I've seen some people saying that this is essentially proof of Horus Heresy 2nd edition. I'm not entirely sure where the rumours of a 2nd edition are coming from, because this isn't the first time we've had, a plastic box game from the Horus Heresy series. I mean, we've had 2 so far already, one based on Calfan, one based on Prospero. And considering this is Fists and Sons of Horus, this looks like it could be based on Siege of Terror?
Most likely, yes. However, I think the reason why the 30k 2 rumours are a bit stronger now is probably time, because Burning of Prospero, I was still living with my parents. It was before I went to university. It was around the time I went to university, Burning of Prospero. So it was around the time we started this podcast, I think. So it's been a good 4 or 5 years since Burning of Prospero. I think it's about 3, maybe 3, 4, something like that. For one, so the rule set is very old now, and whilst it still clearly is holding up, it's probably not where it could be. And the second reason is 9th edition. Because I think it was generally accepted when 8th edition came out that Heresy didn't need to move over. But there has been a larger discussion, rightly or wrongly, you're free to have an opinion on the matter, about should we move 30k into 9th edition? We had that discussion a few episodes ago, I think, about the merits or lack thereof of doing so. So with 9th edition being a very tight and successful rule set for 40k, and the sheer amount of time that 30k has gone unupdated and without a box game, and with all these new miniatures being revealed that seem to be building up to something, that's probably where the rumour's gathering more of its momentum. I'm sure the comments know more than we do, because I don't really keep tabs on the rumour mill as closely as I probably should.
Yeah, because I've seen some people saying in regards to this Argyle miniature, a lot of people were saying that it looks like it's a plastic sculpt as opposed to a resin one.
A lot of people said that about the Malachurst sculpt as well, I remember.
So, do you reckon it's more of a possibility that they could just be moving Horus Heresy away from Forge World and into GW proper?
Or even just into plastic.
Yeah, that's what I mean by into GW proper, because Forge World is just, resin only, isn't it?
Almost. Yeah. Not entirely, but almost. I think it'll be interesting. I think it's probably more likely that Forge World would keep 30k, because obviously GW proper already took all the 40k responsibilities off of them when 9th edition came out in terms of the rules writing. So I think maybe Heresy will move under GW's banner. That's quite possible. But Forge World probably will still maintain control of the miniatures, because if you take 30k off Forge World, what's Forge World got left, really? Like a couple of bits of a guard, Titans, and that's kind of it.
Specialist game stuff as well.
True. But a lot of those have been moving across as well, like Aeronautica and Blood Bowl's obviously almost entirely plastic. Yes, okay, star players and Necromunda special characters, but for the majority of them, they're in plastic under GW as well now.
Yeah. It's curious. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I'm still pissed off the fact that we're still never going to get Fires of Syraxis.
It is what it is at this point. These things happen.
I know. I can still be salty about it, because like they tease like, hey, guess what? Fires of Syraxis. It's going to be Admec against Tau. You can have rules to use the Horus Heresy, automata in 40k, and 8th edition drop down. Fuck it.
Yeah.
So bastards.
Well, to be fair,
I feel sorry for Forge World, because apparently they were completely blindsided by the rules change as well. It's like, oh, we spent all this time working on this for nothing. Thanks.
Dear oh dear. Poor lines of communication scupper so many plans. But the Argyle Town miniature itself, let's focus on what we have in the here and now. The Argyle Town miniature is very, very nice.
It is, yeah.
And I really quite like... Obviously, you can tell that it's based on Possessed in terms of the wings and all the claw stuff, but it feels like different.
More refined.
Yeah, because if you think about Possessed, they normally have their armor and demonic bits, whereas here it really feels like Argyle Tal has partly fused with his armor. If you look at the legs in particular, like the greaves of his legs and his knees, they're ripped like trousers would be. They're like ripped jeans, but power armor. Like it's fused.
In a way, it reminds me of a Hellbrute.
Yeah, a bit. And obviously you've got the hooved feet, which is really a nice touch. It feels much more like a fusion of man, demon, and machine, much more than even the more recent Greater Possessed does. It really feels like he is one with his armor. He is a demonic being now, which is great. And obviously they're showing off his power by having him rip an Ultramarine in half, because that's just what you do.
Ultramarine and Mark II armor as well.
Absolutely.
Which is a rare sight in these days.
I've got to be honest, like, if I were a Chaos Space Marine fan and I wanted to create a Chaos Lord, like, I know it'd be really hard to translate that to a Chaos Lord. It's too small for a Demon Prince. But, like, that helm for a Chaos Lord and those little wings, if you wanted to give them a jump pack, because, like, for example, there isn't really a plastic Chaos Lord. There's one in Terminator Arm, but I can't think of there being a plastic Chaos Lord like multi-part kit. So if you wanted to give them a jump pack, the only one I can think of is the one with twin lightning claws. It's ancient, and it's a lovely model. I always wanted it back in the day, but
unless you want to use Harken World Claimer.
Yeah, true. True. But if you want to create that sort of on there, where they've been gifted with mutation, like this would be brilliant for a crusade army. Like you've got Chaos Lord who starts out quite normal with regular equipment, but as the campaign goes on and they get more and more boons from the gods, they become twisted. Their power fist morphs into a claw. They gain the ability of flight from wings instead of a jump pack, and it culminates in them ascending to demonhood because Crusade is bananas physics like that. So I think this is a really good Chaos Lord miniature for a Crusade army, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't really see the whole it's been made in plastic thing though, because the wings look really stubby. Like they look quite thick and stubby, like resin wings would, rather than the really thin, spindly plastic wings. Because I'm looking at my Daughters of Cain here, and the Kinnerai wings are really thin and spindly, which I know, Daughters of Cain, but it looks quite chunky, which I don't associate with the really refined GW plastics these days. It looks quite thick and chunky like resin. I know the armor's crafted really nicely to be like plastic, but the wings feel like resin.
Yeah,
I'm willing to be wrong here.
Sure.
Like, you might know your miniature design better than I do, but... And the comments will probably be yelling at me going, Tack, you're an idiot. But, personal vibe.
I mean, we'll find out, in a few months when it's released anyway.
Absolutely.
I say a few months because the way we get the reveals, like, how long was it when we got the reveal of the Word Bearers Praetors and then the release? It was like something like 6 months, wasn't it?
When you're Forge World, you really just have to try and dive in and sneak in somewhere. Yeah, probably the other 40k reveal that sort of snuck in probably under a lot of people's radar, drowning in AOS articles and hidden in another article. We got a first look at new Ork Boys.
Oh, yeah. And the that Beast Snagger special character looks like as well.
Yeah, so it's an article, the Here We Go article about the Great White Squig. So I'm going to read this because obviously it's based on the Great White Stag type thing. Known by
I thought
many...
it was based on Moby Dick, personally.
It could be Moby Dick Whale, also the White Stag of being the ultimate goal of hunters in medieval times. I could see it being both. I mean,
why is my dog barking?
Don't know, can't hear it from here though. The Great White Squig is widely regarded as the most belligerent, vicious, and savage squigosaur to crawl from the spawning grounds. Untamable, it wasn't until it met its match in an equally stubborn beast snagger named Mozrog Scragbad that any hope could be found. Mozrog was a snakebite as a particularly tough and surly hunter who'd probably spent a bit too much time away from the boys. All it took was one gaze to bring it to heel, although in reality it took about 3 days before the squig deigned to be ridden. Christened as Big Chomper, I hope that's a reference to Gobbler, a snarlstick squig, but here we are. Kept in line by the belligerence of its master, routinely returning to its usual destructive ways the moment he takes its eyes off it. Yeah.
It's Canis Wolfborn, but as an orc.
Canis Wolfborn, but as an orc. Is it though? Is that what Canis' Thunderwolf was like? Like, so belligerent and go on a rampage as soon as he wasn't riding it?
Maybe not, but the story just reminds me of a bit of Canis Wolfborn for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, because I know, for example, Steeds of Slanesh are like that, where if a demonette takes up the mantle of a seeker, they have to bind it with these silvered reins, and if they ever dismount or let go, the steed will just get jittery and run off back to the pleasure fields for its own entertainment. They have to keep riding them for the rest of their lives. I feel like that's canon. With the Steeds of Slanesh and Seekers. But yeah. And the artwork for Mozrog is pretty cool. You can see he's stabbed his shooter into the squig so he doesn't have to hold it. He's got the grabber snagger claw type thing that you see on the Death Killer War Trike, which is nice. Though no rocket legs. Shame.
And also the new Ork Boy models, which I've seen some people complaining that they don't look comical enough, and I'm thinking, you what? Why do you want And I know orcs are perceived as being the quote-unquote silly faction, but surely you want, your main troops to have, a bit of a more serious look about them, rather than just being, herd we orcs.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you want the orcs to be, and you spoke to me before the show, we're going to talk more about orcs later. But for me, the problem with the Ork Boys kit is that it always made the boys look a bit... I could never get them to look normal. Like, you had to build the bodies in such a way that they always looked like they were completely broken spined or hunched over so far that they literally couldn't stand on their own base. So the kit needed a refresh. And it never looked that comical before. Like, the Ork Knobs kit isn't comical. The Ork Boys kit of old isn't comical. The Grots kit, like, there might be fun Easter eggs in how you can pose them. Like, you might have the odd Grot doing something stupid on a base, or big mechs with comically ridiculous war gear, but the orcs were never funny based on their miniatures. They were funny based on their writing, and that's not going anywhere.
No. I still find it just weird that people complain that that's not comical enough. It's like, for goodness sake. We've moved past, days of first edition, guys.
That said, though, on the topic of the model itself, it was a shooter boy that they showed us, and it looks really nice. The shooter with a big drum barrel, it really looks like a proper heavy machine gun, which is exactly what you'd expect. And I just like the fact that they look quite well put together. I got about 10-20 shooter boys, and they were fine to build and all that stuff. My only question is, how are they going to be put together? Because if you look particularly at the shoulders, the arms don't slot in as easily onto those shoulders, because the t-shirt runs over the shoulder onto the upper arm now. So where's the join there? How does that join together? And is it going to be designed to be a bit more slot into place? Because that was the one other thing with old rifle miniatures. This was true of guardsmen, this was true of boys, this was true of tactical marines. You actually needed to have a bit of practice in building gun, rifle, armed miniatures, because there was no guidance on the model itself as to where the arm needed to go in order that the gun would sit nicely in their offhand. And so I actually had a few experiences with a big shooter, I think it was, where I could not get the arms to line up right. It was a real pain in the rear. So I'm hoping that, as much as I hate monopose, and I hate the fact GW has gone down a very monopose route with its miniatures, there needs to be just a little bit of guidance there, like a little click point or a little diamond to slot into, just to make sure you line the arm up correctly for a shooter. That's put my personal 2 cents on the matter.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, looks cool. And we know there was an extra point of toughness. We saw that in a previous article. So yeah, more orcs, happy. And I think they'll probably be out on release probably 10th of July. They'll probably come out straight after AOS 3s. They'll do a quick run of orcs, and then they'll drop the battle tomes for Orc War Clans and Stormcast. After that, they'll probably give AOS 3 just a month before, of exclusivity for the Dominion rules before they drop the new battle tomes to update Stormcast and Oryx. The other 40k thing, sort of tangential to the main games, is McFarlane are back, and they have returned with 5 new action figures.
Oh, yes. It's like the Blood Angel, Sister Battle, and some ones for painting, isn't it?
Yes, so there is a Blood Angels Hellblaster with the plasma gun. There is a Blood Angels Primaris Lieutenant with Angelic Power Sword, and I think that's a plasma pistol. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to put the image in front of you. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's a plasma pistol.
From the angle, it looks like either that or for some reason he's got a Volkite pistol.
Yeah, because the heating coil just looks really short for a plasma weapon, or is it just me? It looks like a really short coil for a plasma gun. Yeah. You've got a Battle Sister with no guns or anything.
Yeah, it's a plasma pistol, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so the Battle Sister has a bolt gun, a chainsword, or both. The Lieutenant, it's a plasma pistol. The article actually says it, it's like 2 scrolls down tack. But you can hold them in either hand, which is nice. So they can be left-handed with the sword or right-handed with the sword and pistol, which is nice.
Oh, okay.
Both of them come pre-painted, as does the Battle Sister, but there are also some unpainted ones. The artist proof of the Heil Blaster and Battle Sister are available in the grey as well, and they will be available. They're already available at the moment in the UK and Europe. They're available right now. If you live in North America, they will be coming out on the 24th of July. But if you want to get the Primaris, you need to go to Walmart.
Fair enough. Strangely enough, there's also some other action figures that have been, at the very least, teased. I don't know if they're actually available yet, but they've not actually been mentioned on a GW site. They've actually been mentioned on a different site.
Oh, I've missed
I found
this.
the pictures. There's a company called Joy Toy, and they're releasing a set of Ultramarine Infiltrator Primaris.
Ooh, they're shiny. I like them.
Yeah, not much else is known about them at this time, just the fact that, again, it's a company called Joy Toy, who apparently have the license in
Japan, I'd assume?
No, I don't think that's Japanese. I think that might be Chinese, I think. I'll be honest, I don't know my Asiatic languages, so I apologise.
No, neither do I. I just sort of assumed that, like, I remember Japan got some unique miniatures back in the day with Space Marine heroes and stuff. So I just sort of assumed that this might be like we get McFarlane in America and Europe and stuff, and then in Japan you get these. I don't know. I'm just spitballing a little bit, I guess. I don't know if these are coming in to the Western market.
Yeah, because it was actually Stringstorm who actually alerted me to this, because he posted these and saying that he's going to get them. And considering that Stringstorm's based in the Philippines, it might be something that's only available there. I don't know.
Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Judging by the prices based on other Joy Toy figures available on Big Bad Toy Store, you're probably going to look around at least $80 for the set.
That's not bad, actually.
Basically, between $80 to $150.
Do we have a sense of scale in terms of height?
Nothing official for these, but judging by the other Joy Toy figures, they're 1/18 scale.
Right, okay. So that's 1/18 of a human, I assume, because I don't speak that scale.
1/18 scale, it'll probably be around 10 centimeters tall, it looks like, judging by one. This one is 10 centimeters tall, and this one is just over 10 centimeters. So basically, you're looking around 4 inches tall.
Yeah, whereas the McFarlane ones are 7-inch tall, just for context. So they're about just over half the size of a McFarlane one. But yeah, I mean, they're very, very well designed. The incursors actually look even better than the infiltrators, to my mind. But yeah, really cool. Good to see. And it's nice to see that the continual globalization and the world takeover of Games Workshop continues.
I would have liked to seen some Reavers like this, though.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have that back in the day. But we are where we are, I suppose. Nothing we can do about it now.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much, because AOS has been so pushed over the past couple of weeks, there's not a lot more on 40k, etc. that we can say. I'm just flicking back through now. Obviously, Gaunt's Ghost came out. I don't know if you managed to get your hands on the Gaunt's Ghost book, Ram.
I did. It hasn't arrived yet, though. But I did manage to get my order for it, so...
Good.
Strange enough, on the New Zealand site, it says only temporarily out of store rather than sold out. Which makes me think, are they doing a second wave of this?
I mean, they were probably so... Well, it might be there was a limited edition run on the models and book, etc. right now, and then the models will return later. I'd expect. The book may... And then obviously when the book comes out in normal release, I reckon the models will go into general sale as well. I assume.
What the fuck are you barking at? Don't know if you can hear him.
No.
Ah. I'm sure the audience can, because it's picking up on the microphone.
Well, there's nothing else. There's a brief mention. There was a sit-down interview with Hammer and Bolt, some of Hammer and Bolter's writers, which I haven't really looked at. And there was US Open Series tickets being available at the moment for those 3 tournaments I mentioned a couple of episodes in a row. That's really it. Everything else is Age of Sigmar, and I have opinions, but also I appreciate the viewers get rather antsy when I talk about Sigmar, and I would quite...
I might need you to talk about it for a brief, because I need to go and see what my dog's doing, so just talk about AOS for a bit.
All right, well, enjoy Tactica Imperialis monologuing about Age of Sigmar until Rem deals with his dog. Sorry, you're going to have to put up with me now, viewers, because that's a lot to say. I think probably one of the things I really like, and also don't like, about new AOS is how lore-focused it's made its setting. Because the core gameplay for the General's Handbook and all the battle plans, which is what they call missions, by the way, all the battle plans for matched play this edition around are all set in the same realm. They're all set in the realm of beasts. Now, that might sound like not much to you if you don't play AOS, but back in AOS 1 and AOS 2, there were dedicated realm rules, particularly AOS 2 this was. There were dedicated rules for playing in and coming from each realm. They were really expansive in Malign Portents and all that stuff. I think it was Malign Portents. Back in the end of AOS 1. They were streamlined in the General's Handbook 2020 to be a lot more focused. Like you got this, this, and this just to help balance it up a bit. And now they've done away with it. Like all the missions are set in the same realm, which makes sense for a tournament setting because obviously that means that there's less missions variety where you can actually build around playing under certain realm rules a lot more consistently, which is good. But it also reduces the flavour. Like if you want to play in Ulgu or Akshi, the Realms of Shadow and Fire, how do you do that? Are there rules in the core rulebook that I just don't know about because I haven't got the book yet? I'm hoping so, because if all the missions have to be played in Ghur because that's just the realm the plot happens to be in this edition, then I'm going to be a bit disappointed because, I mean, my armies are from Ulgu and from Hish, and I think my Slaanesh army is going to be from Gyron or Akshi. I think Gyron, I quite like the greens contrasting with the demonettes and the humans that I've painted so far. So probably that. But so there's some real cool things in here. For example, there's a mission where the realm, because the realm is alive and the realm's sentient and it's the realm of beasts, so it's all contact dominance, the realm will eat your objectives every single turn. So objectives will disappear turn after turn because the realm literally eats them, which is quite funny. I quite like that. There's some new terrain as well. I forget what it's called. I think it's called the Dawnbringer set. I can't remember the exact name of them. The new kit, but it's quite a nice set of terrain showing this sort of half-built, broken down town, which is really nice in fitting with the new Dawnbringer Crusade lore, which is fantastic, by the way. I know some people are going to say, oh, it's just the Indomitus Crusade Mark II. No, it isn't, actually, because this is different. This is Sigmar going out on crusade to reclaim the realms that he's already lost. This isn't like Guilliman going to get his land back after a Chaos Warp Storm took it all over. This is eons of past. Chaos, destruction, and death have fully conquered the realms, and Sigmar is like, no, none of that. It's more like the Great Crusade than the Indomitus Crusade. But instead of it just being, right, here's the thing, go take the thing, fight, take the next thing, fight, take the next thing. It's more like they're going out, setting up townsteads that are literally carried on floating metaliths above them, and they land the metalith so that they've got a pre-built city ready to go with cog forts and defenses and towers and everything in a couple of days rather than picking a site and then spending weeks and months and years of Duardin masonry building the city up. No, they've already pre-built it and it's ready to go. That's fantastic. That's brilliant because it means you can set your cities up anywhere. Which I really, really like. So that's a really nice piece of lore. And I like how the terrain ties into that. Is there anything else that really got me? Oh yeah, this interrupting in your opponent's turn. 40k players, let me know how you feel about this. Because AOS has a problem with, or it used to have a problem with double turn, but they've introduced a bunch of command abilities that allow you to do stuff in your opponent's turn. Like, they've introduced Overwatch through the Unleash Hell command ability. You've got All Out Defense, which allows you to buff yourself when you get attacked in the enemy's turn. Redeploy. So after your enemy unit makes a move, you can then move a unit that's not in combat away from enemy units. It's like, okay. So it's like your opponent can spend 2 turns setting up this dastardly charge pincer combo. And you can just be like, nah, and peace out when you get double turn and just move out of the way so you don't get charged. Let me know what you think about that. Like, is that a nice thing, being able to act in your opponent's turn, or would you more be in favour of having to set up these long multi-turn strategies and relying on things coming together a certain way rather than being screwed out of it? But then also double turn mechanic exists, so it might actually be better. I don't know. I'm just curious to see what you think, really. What was the other one I wanted to mention? Oh yeah, core battalions. Sorry, I'm really rambling now. Remleiz, please come and save me.
I've been back from a while. I'm just waiting for you to shut up.
Then why didn't you tell me you were back? I've been rambling for the last 5 minutes. It's like, you could have just shut me up or we'd have got on with the show. But I just thought I had to keep killing time because you were still with the bloody dog. I mean, I don't mind keeping talking, but I get the feeling the viewers are sick of me talking. They're just like, skip, 10 seconds, skip, 10 seconds, skip. Just shut up talking Tactica. So why didn't you tell me you were back, for God's sake?
I did.
Did you? I didn't hear you. I literally didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry, the dog got his balls stuck under the chair. Yeah. Got started had to get pull it out.
Carry on with the show, Remleiz.
What?
Carry on with the show, Remleiz. Come on.
Right. I never got a chance to discuss this last episode, but I managed to read through the Necromunda novella Spark of Revolution, which is like one of the few stories I can think of that focuses pretty much exclusively on an Ogryn point of view.
Do we need a spoiler for this section?
It's quite an old novella now. It's like from Novella Series 3.
Okay.
You know, back when we had the Soul Drinking novella come out, the new one?
Oh, yeah,
it's from that same series.
Yeah, remember that.
So it's been out for a while now, so you can go get it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, before I start, one important bit of information to note is in regards to Ogryns and servitors. Is that, you know how a servitor, you know, when a human becomes a servitor, they become lobotomized and just become, you know, essentially a robot.
Yep.
You know, yeah, it doesn't happen with Ogryns. They retain their quote-unquote intelligence.
Yeah, not that they had much to begin with.
No, but, you know, essentially, an Ogryn servitor is just an Ogryn with bionic bits.
Right, okay, fair enough.
So yeah, this one Ogryn servitor named Breaker Brass, who I'll probably just refer to as Breaker, just for ease, because everyone keeps calling him Breaker Brass, and it's just such a fucking mouthful of a name.
Yeah.
So he's basically been tagging along with this Goliath gang, who's basically owning this foundry where all these other Ogryn servitors work. And as of late, this Goliath gang's been coming into conflict with another Goliath gang, which Breaker finds a bit weird, because, like, you know, he's fought with Goliaths against House Dalag, against House Van Sar, against House Escher, etc. He just finds it weird that Goliath is now fighting Goliath, but, you know, he's an Ogryn, he just does what he's told.
Yeah, of course.
And then one day, the Goliath gang that owns the foundry, they get taken out by another Goliath gang called the Blood Eye Gang. Because they have, you know, red painted eyes, so hence Blood Eye Gang.
Okay.
And this new gang is not a very nice gang, because they start basically, you know, beating the Ogryn servitors and start giving them less food and refusing to have them treated, and basically just trying to skim off profits, extra money, blah, blah, blah. As I just do what you're told, you're Ogryn servitors. But Breaker is not content to let this lie, because one particular, his friend, an Ogryn servitor who's basically been really badly beaten, he is so badly injured, he needs repairs, essentially. He goes, need repairs. Goes up to the Goliath boss, he needs repairs. Like, he ain't getting repairs, he's got to do some work. It's like, he can't work if he doesn't get repairs. He needs repairs. And the Goliath's just getting really pissed with how uppity and stubborn this one particular Ogryn is. Like, this Ogryn's going to be trouble. Alright, we'll repair your friend, but next time we're going out for a raid, you're coming with us because we need a meat shield. So they end up going into Escher territory. Oh, hang on, 1 second, sorry to interrupt. Someone apparently slept through 3 alarm clocks.
Oh.
It's alright, at least I'm not thinking it's, you know, midnight Texas time. Anyway, so when the gang goes on a raid, they go into some Escher territory, and the Ogryn comments how he doesn't like the Eschers, because while, you know, an Ogryn is big and tough, can take bullets, knives, and whatever, Escher used poison, which, the Ogryn doesn't like, as all it takes is one scratch to basically, really hurt someone.
Yep.
And they get into this big fight. Ogryn gets into a scrap with this Escher, who stabs him with a poison blade, right in the leg, poison blade, which starts to basically liquefy his leg. And after the battle's over, the Goliaths basically look at him and it's like, right, we need you to carry this back. It's like, I can't walk. Look at my leg. I need repairs. So the Goliaths basically get their field medic to inject him, with what is, presumably a painkiller. It's actually a paralytic drug. Brennan's isn't paralyzed. The Goliaths cut off Breaker's arms and legs, because his arms are basically, huge power fists at this point. It's like, this could be worth a pretty penny on the black market. Cut off your legs, you can't move, we're just going to dump you down this trash chute. Bye-bye, as you do.
As you do.
Breaker's body gets found by another Ogryn, but not just any Ogryn, an Ogryn that's had the Bonehead enhancement.
Oh, a smart Ogryn.
A smart Ogryns. And she takes Breaker back to her camp, or her little shanty hut thing, where there's another servitor, a human servitor, but despite this human being a human servitor, it's fully sentient.
What? Hang on, no. That's a
They explain the reason why.
Good, go on.
Because unlike regular servitors, which go through surgical lobotomization, the servitors apparently on Necromunda go through mechanical lobotomization. So basically they have an implant put into their head which basically shuts off their higher brain functions. And essentially, the module failed and allowed her to regain her sentience over time.
Okay, I think I understand.
Yeah, so basically it's like, it was a program block, it shoved the higher functions, and it rebuilt. So basically, the servitor explains to Breaker that they found the Ogryn Bonehead and basically fitted them with a Bonehead implant, because they had a nice big box of Bonehead implants. It's like, where did you get the box of Bonehead implants? Like, you don't want to know.
I was going to say, that was my next question.
It's Astra Militarum surplus I managed to acquire.
By murder.
No, not by murder, no. Well, she didn't commit any murder, but anyway. So yeah, they fix up Breaker Brass by giving him new bionic limbs and the Bonehead implant as well. Now, as Breaker's settling in over the next few days, getting the implant used and all that, he starts having these weird dreams.
Oh, no.
He's dreaming that he's inside this big metal box with other Ogryns that's on fire, and one of the Ogryns is asking, should we leave? No, we've been told to wait. We wait. And then cuts out with explosion. And you eventually learn that it's because these Bonehead units came from Astra Militarum Ogryns that died in the field because they were sitting in a Chimera transport that blew up, that was already on fire, and they didn't leave because they were told to stay.
And
because
somehow... Sorry.
Because as you know, Ogryns are very simple-minded and do what they're told.
But that therefore implies that Bonehead implants don't just dump information in hands of the mental faculties. They actually retain and somehow implant and or can imprint memory, which is interesting.
Yeah. Again, they are neural implants, so, partly to be expected, but after a while, these dreams, become less and less intense. It's only for the first few days he's basically having the memories of this dead Ogryn.
Which will have been a very weird experience.
Oh, yeah. Because he's asked the other Ogryn, did you have the same thing? It's like, yeah, it was absolutely fucking horrible.
Yes.
And basically, Breaker comes to the realization that the other Ogryns, under the rule of this new Goliath gang, they're basically being given an absolutely shit hand in life. So he decides, I'm going to go and free them. They're my people, they're being treated like shit, they deserve better. Because prior to this, he gets told the story of an Ogryn named Sparky. Now, for those of you who play Necromunda, you'll know who Sparky is. As far as to say, Sparky was an Ogryn that led a massive revolution in the Underhive, which was not just Ogryns, but other abhumans as well. So, mutants, beastmen, etc. A massive uprising that got put down by the Guilders very messily, because the Guilders do not like that. And even to the point where they built a church out of the bones of all the Ogryns that rebelled. Because 40k Grimdark.
Ouch.
Now, Breaker says like he's never heard this story before. And the Servitor says like, yeah, there's a reason you haven't heard of it, because the Guilders don't want the Ogryns to know about this because they don't want it happening again.
Duh.
But to which, Breaker says, fuck it, I'm going to do it regardless. By the way, reaching into the box of Astrum and Time's supplies. Thanks for the Ripper gun. I'm going to go back and free my friends.
Oh,
and the other Ogryn decides to help him as well. It's like, I'm a pacifist Ogryn, but I don't want to see you dead because I like you, you're a good person, so fuck it, I'm going to help you, even though it's against my better fucking judgment.
I'm guessing it ends about as well as the last rebellion did.
Not quite, because there's a two-parter to this. So Breaker tries, firstly, to infiltrate the Foundry. Just let that sink in for a moment. An Ogryn infiltrating.
I was about to say, but yes, okay, go on.
In fairness, he is a bonehead, so he is smarter than the average Ogryn.
But he's still an Ogryn.
He's still an Ogryn, yeah. He's on par with, like, typical Hive Ganger at this point.
And he's massive. I'm more thinking an Ogryn stealth in terms of size rather than intellect. But
with the help of a couple of other Ogryns, who are still very simple-minded, he manages to create a distraction, cause one of these massive lead ladles, the ones that pour the giant liquid lead.
Yep.
Manages to get that to pour all over for himself, all alarms, cause a distraction, and then Breaker goes in, Ripper gun blazing, as you fucking do.
Well, on burst fire mode, of course, because if it wasn't on burst fire mode, it would use up all the ammo in a single shot.
Yeah, obviously.
I think that's right.
Yep. Except Breaker's is a modified one which doesn't have that, because he's smart enough to know, don't let it all go at once.
Okay.
So anyway, he ends up getting into a brief fight with the Goliath gang leader, called Dead White. He's called that because he's, as pale as fucking milk. And he also has an inbuilt conversion field, like literally implanted into his skin.
As you do, it's Necromunda.
As you do. Get into a brief fight, beats the shit out of him. He thinks he's knocked him into the molten lead, because he can just see his axe in there, but no, he manages to escape. Okay, we've beaten the shit out of all these Goliaths. Right, they're going to be back with some reinforcements, we know that for certain, so we need to start reinforcing this place. Right, need you guys to do this. And the Ogryn's like, what about our quota? Fuck your quota, this is a new job. Work? Yes, work. Work. Basically, think that the peons from Warcraft 3 is like, work, work, work. That's basically the Ogryns in a nutshell. And he starts training these Ogryns how to fight. Like, actually giving things like target practice and stuff like that as well, which is absolutely adorable.
I can imagine that goes somewhat well.
Yeah. He's asked another Ogryn to basically keep watch on the security cameras, and he's wondering after a while, it's like, it's too fucking quiet, why haven't we seen anything? Is there anything on the monitors? No, just black. What do you mean, just black? There's nothing. No sign. They've cut the cameras. Shit. Right, they're coming. He sees a big, huge, basically a huge metal box, like a big, what are they called? Not supply. Is it supply crate? The big things you see at the docks. There's big metal
shipping
crates.
Container.
That's it, yeah. Slowly shuffling forward because some Goliaths are inside it. So as you do,
ding, light bulb. Remember that.
Breaker grabs the missile launcher that was left lying around after the first encounter with the Escher, because the Goliaths took that from the Eschers. Missile 1, frag. Missile 2, frag. Missile 3, frag. Missile 4, crack.
Big metal box go boom.
Yeah. So, right, they're going to be coming, lads. Get ready. Goliaths charge. Big gunfight. Goliaths fall back. But then you hear something very large and very loud approaching. Oh shit, it's Dead White. Oh shit, he's now a Zerker. Now, for those who don't know, Zerkers are members of House Goliath who have basically taken so many steroids they've become Ogryn-sized. Essentially.
Just, like, they've not lost their intelligence to do that, just to clarify.
Oh, yes, they have. They basically become bigger, stronger, and dumber.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough.
So basically ends up getting into a huge fight, basically huge fist fight with Breaker. The ironic thing, you got basically a member of House Goliath who is stronger than an Ogrin, and an Ogrin that's smarter than a regular human. Well, I say regular human at this point, but yeah.
I mean, they always said that the Goliaths were basically halfway to Ogryns, so, you know.
Pretty much. Ends up having a really brutal fight, and it ends basically by Breaker ripping the conversion field implant out of Dead White's body and wrapping the wires around his neck. Pop.
Fatality.
Pretty much. And the Ogryns and Breaker's like, right, well, the Guilders aren't going to be too happy. Let's go, lads. And they go off into the Underhive and into the unknown, the end. I'd say it's a really fun story. My little synopsis doesn't do it justice, I'll say this now.
If you're into big smashy violence, it definitely does sound like a good read.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of Ogryns, because, again, this seems to be like, it's fucking Ogryn Week. It's like Shark Week, but with Ogryns. Ogryn Week. The new Ghazghkull Thraka novel, Prophet of the Waaagh, consider this your spoiler warning.
Yes, this needs spoilers, because only its limited edition is out.
Exactly. So, we enter the spoiler room in 3, 2, 1... Yeah, no joke this time, because I couldn't think of one. Fuck it. I don't know, something, Sami Callihan beats Kenny Omega for the AEW title. Never going to happen, but we can but hope. Anyway, so we start off the novel with the fact that an Inquisitorial ship meets up with a Blood Axe ship.
Okay.
Because the Blood Axe has something for the Inquisition. It's like, we heard you've been looking for something. We think we have it. Gonna cost you though. What is it you got? We got Makari. Well, against the Inquisitor's retinue's better judgment, the Inquisitor says, okay, we'll pay you for Makari, but only if it actually is Makari.
Of course.
Of course. So the Blood Axe, called Biter, brings Makari on board, and I just want to point out at this point, Biter is dressed up in a full Commissar regalia. Long trench coat, duster cap, medals made from bottle caps, naturally, because fucking Blood Axes.
Absolutely.
And he's got this grot in chains. Now this grot, it's a big grot, because he's almost as tall as the fucking Inquisitor.
That is a big grot.
Yeah, because normally when you think of grot, you think of something really small and dinky, but this grot is only a head smaller than the Inquisitor. He comes up to the Inquisitor's chin.
Yeah, because typically grot height is roughly about half a human, probably. Give or take. Yeah,
that's the general perceived version of it, yeah. But also bear in mind, how big is the average orc? It's about the size of a space marine. Be even taller if he stood up straight.
I thought they always used to say it was the size of a human if they stood up straight.
What, an orc?
That's what I think. That's what they used to say, that a human would stand roughly the size of a tall human if only they would stand up straight.
I'm pretty sure there's like orcs are taller than humans, and if they stood up straight, they'd be even taller.
I think they might have updated that to make orcs taller as time's gone on then.
Maybe. I'm going by the second edition law, but anyway.
I think I'm going off the 4th edition one. They used to say that.
Fair enough. But anyway, if someone can double check that in the comments, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, please.
Anyway, so to try and prove this as Makari, the Inquisitor basically wants Makari to tell the story, basically to prove that it's Makari. So the Makari says, well, best way to do that is to tell the story of Ghazghkull, because that's who you want to know about, isn't it? You want to know about the boss. But unfortunately, Makari doesn't speak Gothic, so Biter has to be a translator.
Oh dear.
Now, at this point in time, I should point out the Inquisitor's retinue includes a Space Wolf Rune Priest, which is very very rare for a Space Wolf to be part of an Inquisitor's retinue, because apparently he had a falling out with the Death Watch.
I mean, the Space Wolves and the Inquisition got on famously after Armageddon, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just more concerned about what the fuck did he do to get himself put on the wrong side of the Death Watch.
Also true.
The other member of the Inquisitor's retinue, and you're not going to believe this because it's so what the fuck, it's an Ogryns Psyker.
Right, I'll see you next week.
Yeah, they make a point how, like, the Imperial Truth says it's not possible, but We learnt it's possible when this Ogryns' powers manifested in the field by it telekinetically moving a tank. Now, the Commissar was about to shoot the Ogryn there and there because, it goes against the principles of the Imperial Truth, but the Inquisitor basically turned around and said, no, I'll have that.
Who was the author again? Nate Crowley?
Yeah, Nate Crowley, yeah. Now, let me put it this way. If you were an Inquisitor, and you found standing before you was an intelligent, psychic Ogryn, would you not want to have that?
Depends on how puritanical you've happened to be.
It's like, Ogryns famously loyal and famously, skilled as being bodyguards. This one's also a powerful telekinesis, and also is intelligent, and you can actually have a conversation with it. I'll take one. Thank you very much. It'll be very useful. Even to the point where its powers are on par with that of the Rune Priest. That is a powerful psyker, regardless of species.
That is a very, very powerful psyker.
Yes. So, anyway, Makari starts recounting the story of Ghazghkull's rise on Urk.
Which we know that story, or we think we do.
We think we do, yes. Starts with Ghazghkull's quote-unquote birth, him literally coming out the ground from a spore pod. And the first thing he does is rip the insides out of a squig that tried to eat him. Rip the insides out, put the fur on as a cloak, starts walking across the ice fields, goes up to a Goth fort, starts banging on the door wanting to be let in. Now, normally the Goths at this fort will just shoot anyone at their door because these are very surly Goths. But the boss thought, hang on, he's got a nice squig pelt. I'll have that, and if you shoot him, it'll make fucking holes in it, and I don't want holes in my new squig pelt, thank you very much.
So he decides to take the shirt off, I'll punch you in the face, Ghazghkull punches him in the face, and becomes the new boss.
Not quite. Opens the gate, boss walks up to him, and Ghazghkull butts him. And boss was like, yeah, you're right, come on in.
So basically, Ghazghkull is Commander Shepard, and this is Krogan in Mass Effect 2.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just the power of headbutt compels you.
Yeah. Oh, funnily enough, they actually explain the importance of headbutting in Ork culture.
Good.
This is a thing. Apparently, if an Ork headbutts something, you're praising both Gork and Mork, because you're hitting someone with the part you think with.
That's brilliant. Yep, approve.
So there you go. Ork society, headbutting is important. You're praising both gods if you headbutt someone. So, after a few days, they're basically, having fun, brawling, sitting in the brewer, which is basically, the Ork pub.
Yep.
And Ghazghkull looks out the window and sees, at the top of this mountain, some bright lights. What's that? Oh, that's an Umi fort. Why aren't we fighting it? Dunno. Let's go fight tomorrow then. You're alright. Next day, Ghazghkull gets his head pulped in by a bolt around.
Yep, know about that.
We know. Now, Makari says that Ghazghkull walked spent about pretty much an entire week walking through the wilderness, looking for someone to patch his brains back in, until he wanders into a Death Skull encampment and meets up with Grotznik. But the Ogryn Psyker then interrupts, saying, hang on, I heard that his body was found by a bunch of evil sons who picked up Ghazghkull's corpse and dumped it to Grotznik just so they could sell him for some bullets. And Makari says, yeah, that's right. To which the Space Wolf goes, well, which version of the story is it? It can't be both. And Makari's like, I don't follow. Because Orcs apparently are capable of believing two objective and completely contradictory truths as both being true at the same time, even if they do contradict each other.
Right, so Orcs wrote Warhammer 40,000 then?
As far as the Orcs are concerned, Ghazghkull both walked an entire week across the wilderness and met with Grotznik personally, and got his body stolen by a bunch of evil sons and was sold for a couple of bullets at the same time.
Again, Orcs wrote Warhammer 40,000.
Exactly. So Grotznik starts doing his thing. He gets a bit of adamantium, smashes it into Ghazghkull's head. Bang, bang, bang. We also have an explanation of where the adamantium came from. It's a piece of Terminator armor.
Makes sense, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Ghazghkull looks like he's dead, and Grotznik goes, shit. Oh well, you, Grot, get rid of that. Oh, and rip out the bit of adamantium, I want that back, thanks. So the Grot's basically poking Ghazghkull with a stick, making sure he's dead, because there are sometimes, Orcs aren't always dead.
Yep.
So climbs on top of him, tries to start pulling the adamantium out of his head, Ghazghkull's hands slam around Makari's head. This is definitely Makari, as you probably already guessed. And Makari receives what is essentially a psychic vision, because of the power of Ghazghkull flowing through his head, because there's green lightning sparking from Ghazghkull's skull at this point now, because of the adamantium implant.
Mm-hmm.
And Makari basically sees orcs how they were meant to be, basically giant, the lowliest boy is bigger than the biggest war boss.
Like Crocs type thing.
Yeah. And standing atop a mound of corpses, with spaceships flying overhead, he sees a giant six-limbed monstrosity with a gun in each hand and massive horns roaring in triumph. He's basically seeing, essentially, the personification of Ghazghkull and the Waaagh. And for eagle-eyed viewers, you will also know, this is actually an Easter egg to 2nd edition, because the image that Makari sees is actually his banner from 2nd edition, which I thought was a really nice touch.
Yeah, I haven't... Oh, I have not... I feel like I have, and I've seen that image before, but I've never really looked at it all that closely. That's really good. That's a really nice touch. Well done.
That's a nice little Easter egg, yes.
Yes, well done, Nick Crowley.
And then the vision fades, and Ghazghkull is now sitting up, staring Makari in the eye, and said, like, "You paint that image." It's like, I ain't got any paper or paint. Use that sheet of corrugated metal and use my blood. Paint it. Your name is now Makari. You serve me. Okay, boss. Grosnick's not too happy about this arrangement because, like, oh yeah, it's my fucking Grot. Like, he's mine now. Okay.
And also, he doesn't get his adamantium back.
Exactly. Now, Ghazghkull ends up just walking out of Grosnick's surgery, even though Grosnick gets pissed. It's like, oh, you interrupted my surgery. Oh shit, you're alive, and you've somehow gotten bigger. Yeah, the door's there, mate. Alright, cheers. So, Ghazghkull walks out of surgery and basically starts looking around the camp. Now, bear in mind, this is a Death Skull camp, and he's the only goth. He sees a bunch of orcs walking down the street, big orcs, this really big one telling jokes,
Mm-hmm.
It's the war boss, Dregmek.
Know that name.
Yep, as you should do if you know anything about Ghazghkull's lore. And basically, Ghazghkull starts walking up to him and says, "You are a fucking embarrassment to the gods. You are a fucking weakling. You're a fucking failure." And Dregmek's like, "It was this little fucking runt. It was this runt having a go at me. Is that black and white checkers? It's a fucking goth runt. What's a fucking goth runt doing here?" And Ghazghkull starts getting so like, "No, mate, you're still an embarrassment to the gods." And Dragon's like, "Yeah, don't think so, mate." Gets his gun out and tries to shoot Ghazghkull. All his bullets miss, because orc accuracy is a thing.
And Mork probably favouring his chosen is a thing.
Yep. And so they get into a huge fight. Now, bear in mind, Ghazghkull is pretty much just wearing, his standard, light armour as a boy, and Dregmek's in full mega armour.
But Ghazghkull has an adamantium head, so headbutt to doom, I'm guessing.
It's not quite that simple. There's basically, it's more of Ghazghkull's speed versus Dregmek's power, and basically Ghazghkull overwhelms him. And it ends up with Ghazghkull basically headbutting it again, and again, and again, until the point where he gives one massive headbutt that causes Dregmek's head to explode.
I swear that's a Mortal Kombat fatality.
Probably is. Now, he looks over to Dregmek's lieutenants, because the next biggest orc is an orc named Bullets. It's short. It's actually something else, but Bullets is what it's short for. It's like, bullets are never run out because they keep shooting, blah, blah, blah. Because orcs.
Yes, because orcs.
And Ghazghkull says, like, "No, I know you're the next biggest orc, and I just killed your boss. If you want to try and challenge me, you can." And Bullets just looks at him, looks at Dregmek's corpse, looks at Ghazghkull again and says, "If I follow you, we're going to have a good fight, aren't we? We're going to fight some good stuff, aren't we?" "Yep." "Yeah, all right, I'm in. I'm going to follow you."
So Ghazghkull, a goth is now a Death Skull war boss because he battered the old guy. Yep, checks out.
And then Ghazghkull basically starts his plan to start reuniting the orc clans of Urk. Now, the only one that willingly joins without Ghazghkull needing to beat the shit out of him is, unsurprisingly, the Blood Axe. Because Blood Axes are fucking cowards.
Yeah, they know they may sneer at the other clans for being so brutish, but when one comes along and threatens to hit you in the face, then you kind of know, yeah, okay, we're not going to get anywhere with this one.
I has a strategy and it involves not getting my head caved in, so I'm going to follow you.
Yes, the strategy is not dying.
Yeah. So yeah, he ends up having a quote-unquote naval battle against a Bad Moon Admiral, even though it's entirely on land, but he kept calling himself an admiral, so they pretended it was a naval battle because the Bad Moon was a nut job. He ends up having a race against the Evil Sun war boss, and the Evil Sun ends up crashing and just going, "Oh, that was a right laugh, isn't it? Alright, I'm with you."
I was going to say, there's no way that Ghazghkull's winning in an actual speed race without someone crashing.
No. The Goth war boss, Ghazghkull just headbutted him so hard that the orc went cross-eyed permanently.
Obviously.
Because Ghazghkull. It's like, his head was tougher than Dragmex, but not quite right in the head, though. Basically, his skull was caved in and he's gone cross-eyed. And apparently, that Goth's, his Norbs basically did the same thing to each other in solidarity. So you got a bunch of cross-eyed Goths.
Great.
I can't remember what he did for the snakebite. But yeah, so yeah, once the Orc clans are basically united, Makari mentions how it was basically a riot of colour at the camp. Literally a riot of colour, because all the Orcs were beating the shit out of each other, and they're having the time of their life. But the Ghazghkull is like, nah, this ain't enough.
Yeah, the story, as I know it, is that Urk's son began to die.
It did, yeah. Ghazghkull takes it as a vision from Gork and Mork.
We gotta go.
Yeah, so basically it's like, right, these fights here, they're small. We're going to have a big fight, but what we need you to do is basically make a shit ton of weapons, make a shit ton of trucks, tanks, everything. Get to work, because we've got a bigger fight coming. Do it. And eventually you get to some orcs appearing in orbit, like some freebooters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, right, who are we killing? And eventually it gets to the point where the Space Hulk turns up as well. And it's like, right, we need to get on that Space Hulk, which is coming. And to do that, they modify some rockets. They have them piloted by Evil Suns, but, well, I say piloted, they literally just put the brains of the Evil Suns into the rockets, and the Evil Suns were more than willing to do so, because like, hey, you can go faster than you ever would before. It's like, oh yeah, cheers. As you do.
As you do.
One thing I've also forgot to mention in regards to the race we had with the Evil Sun. Makari was on Ghazghkull's bike, and he had his back burnt really badly. That's important to the story. That is actually important to the story.
Right, okay, thank you for mentioning it.
And it gets to the point where they get onto the Space Hulk, and they find out the Space Hulk's infested with demons. And it's like, oh, great, Chip's going to be nice and entertaining then, let's go have a big fight. But we can't actually control the engines yet, because the engines have been contaminated with this massive warp rift that's opened up right between them, so we need to go and shut it off.
Mm-hmm.
So they go down, the Orcs go down, and out comes a fucking Bloodthirster, and Ghazghkull's like, "Woohoo! You're a big one! I'm going to have fun beating the shit out of you!"
He's Brock Lesnar when Keith Lee came out in the Rumble.
Pretty much, yeah. And Makari's like shitting himself, because like, oh shit, I need to follow Ghazghkull against that thing. And Ghazghkull's like, nah. And Ghazghkull's like, nah, you stay there. Nah, that's fine. All you boys watch, this is how you fucking do it. Cracks his knuckles, gets into a huge fucking fist fight with a Bloodthirster.
And wins.
Yep. And after the Bloodthirster's basically been knocked back through the portal, he's basically shouting at the portal saying, "Is that all you got? Come on. I thought you had something challenging, nah? Fucking wuss." But while this is happening, while the Orcs are watching, Grotsnik turns up, puts his hand on Makari's shoulder, it's like, "Hi, I don't like you," pushes him off a ledge. Makari starts tumbling down into the void of space, freezes over, and dies. And to which we come back to the Inquisitor's like, "You died. Yeah. But you're here.
How are you here?"
It's like, this is why I haven't got my burnt back, because I died. But if you're dead, how are you here? Yeah, it's just a bit weird. I suppose the best way to say it is like, Makari is basically the Orc equivalent of Celestine at this point.
He reincarnated.
In a sense.
Bloody hell.
And I say it in a sense because another Grot gets given the Makari moniker, Ghazghkull puts his hand on this new grot saying, right, you're Makari now. And this somehow psychically imprints this new grot of all the memories of the previous Makari.
What?
Because orcs, because the orcs now believe this is Makari, therefore this grot is Makari.
What? You see what we were saying earlier about orcs being comedic in their lore, not their models? This is what we meant, by the way. Bloody hell.
Yeah. So this second Makari, I'm trying to remember what happens next. So this second Makari is basically the Makari that starts leading into the Armageddon War. And we start talking about the Armageddon War and how Herman von Straub thought, the orcs won't be able to get through the equatorial jungle, and the orcs are just marching through because, it's just fucking lovely, isn't it? We get to fight shit, yeah! And so fucking enemies. But then they get to Hades' Hive, which is being defended by Yarrick.
Of course.
And at this point, Ghazghkull realizes that he has found his Grod. His favourite foe. His eternal foe.
Yep, I remember the word. Yep, in Orc lexicon.
Yeah. However, because Ghazghkull realizes that this Yarrick is tougher than the average human, he starts to have self-doubt, and because he believes that Yarrick might beat him, the orcs start losing. Basically, the orcs start losing at Armageddon because Ghazghkull gets depressed.
I know the orcs work off psychic war fields and all this bananas, but I understand the idea of Yarrick replaced his eye with a bionic eye because they called him One-Eyed Yarrick with the Death Stare of Doom. I get that, and feeding into the orc psyche, but I knew Ghazghkull was powerful. I didn't think he was so powerful that his own thinking of, oh, hang on, this Yarrick's good, I might just lose, means that his army he isn't even leading goes on to lose. That's mad.
That is mad, yeah. So, basically, Ghazghkull and the other war bosses of his quote-unquote council, they go off, basically towards Golgotha, and leave the other orcs to fight on Armageddon.
And then Dante shows up and diddly-diddly-dee.
Yeah. Because Makari says, we got some beakies turn up, not grey ones like him, but we got some green ones and some red ones and even some blue ones. They were the luckiest. Get it?
Yep. Yeah, I get it.
It gets to the point where Makari sees Ghazghkull getting depressed, and Makari basically says, you need to... I don't agree with what you're doing, Ghazghkull. I'm sorry, but I think you're doing the wrong thing. To which Ghazghkull gets very up close and personal in Makari's face, and what makes you think that a grot like you can talk to me like that? He takes his fingers, puts them on outside Makari's head, pop. End of Makari number 2. Makari number 3 has a peg leg. Gets the banner shoved in his hand. Right, this is Makari now. Is it you wanted a banner waver? You got one. Go and get that banner up. Is that okay? I'm Makari now. And then he gets shot about 5 minutes later by a dreadnought. Then Armageddon 3 happens. Strangely enough, no mention of the Piscina campaign, which I'm finding really surprising.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you're trying to follow the big things that guys everything Piscina and everything else is kind of just Ghazghkull preparing for Armageddon 3. So I guess in terms of the key plot points of the defining moments of Ghazghkull's life, Piscina doesn't count. That's just where he's got a new fancy shiny thing.
For anything to do with Nazdrake, though, so maybe that's just me.
Oh, yeah, completely fair. But and it's really nice, actually, because obviously, as I remember the story, Yarrick went to Golgotha, gave Ghazghkull such a good fight, and he wanted such a good fight later that he let Yarrick go, which shows that Ghazghkull has overcome his fear of Yarrick, because he's fought Yarrick on Golgotha, and he's beaten him, sort of, but now he's like, okay, I've beaten you with a small army, now we need to do it properly. He's got over his fear, and rather than just killing Yarrick to banish the spectre of his potential failure, he's overcome that fear by saying, you know what, Yarrick, I know I can beat you now. Off you go. I want a good fight later, which is good.
And now back on Armageddon for Armageddon 3. Huge carnage around. Basically, Ghazghkull's just taking it all in. It's this is great, ain't it, Makari? Look at all this carnage. It's holy is what it is. Holy. But as he's doing his little monologuing soliloquy, a really battered, broken down Leman Russ tank trundles out of the smoke, sees Ghazghkull, shoots Ghazghkull with its battle cannon. Ghazghkull gets hit, and Ghazghkull just goes, "They shot me! Who do they think they are shooting me?" It's like, then the shell explodes. Don't worry, Ghazghkull survived. He's taken worse.
Makari 3, however.
No, Makari survived this one. What he did, Makari ended up crawling inside that bad Leman Russ and killing all the crew.
He's a grot.
With sharp teeth.
He's a grot.
It's implied that he bit the throats out of every single guardsman in that tank.
He must have been bloody fast.
Yep. It's like, don't worry, boss, I got him. And Gaz was like, yeah, you're not bad.
I'm surprised Ghazghkull didn't go, excuse me, they shot me, therefore I should have killed him. You weren't responsible for that, and you're going to die for it now. Splat. I thought what I was expecting to happen, but you know.
But after this, the Inquisitor's basically like, okay, but this doesn't answer my particular question. I still find this very hard to believe. But it's been like over 20 hours since the interrogation began. The Space Wolf basically says to her, telepathically, you should really take a nap now. You haven't got the endurance of a Space Marine or an Ogryn. You need a fucking nap.
Which is true.
And it's like, fine, I'll take a nap then. 6 hours later, unauthorized launch of an escape pod. The Blood Axe has escaped. Makari's still on board, though. So, what's going to happen now to conduct this interrogation? Oh, by the way, the Blood Axe managed to kill the Ogryns Psyker before leaving.
Just off screen.
Yeah, off screen. They find the Ogryn's corpse. Because the Ork killed the Ogryn while the Ogryn was busy writing in her diary. An Ogryn that can fucking write, let alone read.
Yeah.
Apparently it was just a lucky blow that caught the jugular vein, caused the bleed out. So, anyway. The Space Wolf, like Rune Priest, he basically gets all of his magical religious paraphernalia, lays them all out. It's like, right, we're going to talk about what happened with your boss when he met Ragnar Blackmane. I'm going to enter your mind and see what you fucking did. To be continued, because I haven't gotten that far yet. But that's basically where we're ending off. So it's ending with the recent fight between Ghazghkull and Ragnar, where they killed each other.
The one that... yeah. Right, that was an experience.
It's definitely... Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm really not sure what to say. Like, it's really cool, and I bet reading it is absolutely bloody hilarious, but I have so many questions. Like,
believe me, you're not the only one.
Oh my days. Okay, right. That is one. We're going to put a pin in that, and we're going to come back to that because that was utterly bananas.
Excuse me. Oh yeah, but again, this is the Orcs in a nutshell. Oh, also, there's a little Easter egg to the short story "Enemy Are My Enemy." You know, the one with the Orc general with the toy tanks, because they mention the Orc from that. You know, General Tacticus. He gets name dropped in this novel as well, which is awesome.
Fair play, well done.
Like, oh yeah, this is General Tacticus. He just came back from a really important victory against the. So I don't care. He's like, all right, boss. But yeah, Brother of the Waaagh is it's an experience.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to judge like merits because you just sat there trying to digest what the hell you just read. Like I don't mean to sound demeaning to the book because it's obviously really piqued your interest that you're still reading it and everything else. And I know we spoke earlier, you put Godblight down to go and pick it up. So it's obviously doing something right.
There's also one little interaction between the Blood Axe Orc and the Rune Priest that I forgot to mention, which was absolutely hilarious. The Rune Priest ends up threatening the Blood Axe, but the Blood Axe takes it as a sign of affection and says, I'd love to kill you too. And Oh, and the Blood Axe got pissed off because the Rune Priest ended up eating some meat, and York was like, "Can I have some?" No. It's like, you got food, I'm jealous now.
Fair enough.
But yeah, an orc in a commissarial outfit. Someone needs to make a conversion of that. Actually, I think that might actually be another reference to 2nd edition. I think, because there was a piece of art in the 2nd edition Orc Codex that had a Blood Axe wearing, pretty much wearing a full commissarial outfit. It also had a Gretchen. It basically was amounted to a Nazi uniform with a monocle, which was a bit ew.
The 80s, ladies and gentlemen.
90s.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think I found it. 1 second. So I think it's actually a reference to this particular piece of art, but just the way he's described it, having the long trench coat and the duster cap and the medals.
I mean, that's just Captain Badrock.
I ain't Badrock, because Badrock's a free brewer, and he's got the pirate hat.
I know, but Badrock has got the jacket and the tricorn hat and stuff like that. I know it's different, but the Flash Gits kit actually has quite a lot of coats and trench coat type things these days and back banners, so you can actually get quite close to that style of look from the Flash Gits kit. So I think the hat would be wrong. I think they're more tricorn than...
It's alright, I'm not dead. Fuck.
Good.
Fuck. But yeah, as you know, health issues. Blah. Anyway, regardless, yeah, the Ghazghkull book is it's certainly a thing.
Yeah. Shall we close spoilers?
1 second.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So I think we'll call that there on spoilers. Obviously, Rem says he hasn't finished it, so we will get back to that in the coming episode or two, depending on where we get to. And I know we were speaking earlier that Godblight will probably be on the agenda at some point as well. So just as a point for those who are wanting to ask questions about what you just heard, can you just make sure to put a spoiler warning in your question if you wanted to ask about events that you've just heard about? Because obviously it's a spoiler because most people haven't read the book yet because it's not out on general sale. So if you're asking about something that happened in the Prophet of the Waaagh book that you've just heard and you want to know more about it, or you want us to just get our opinions on it at further length, now we have a chance to digest it for 2 weeks, then please do just mention, comment, question, bracket, spoiler, just so that we are aware that that's a spoiler and we know to discuss it in that section in an upcoming episode.
God, my chest feels shit. Oh, pardon me.
If you need to go, then we'll call it here. That's fine.
No, didn't you say you wanted to talk about a novel as well?
Your health comes first, Rem. If you need
no,
to stop,
it's fine. I'll be able to power through. Just need to rest my voice for a few minutes.
Okay. If you're absolutely sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I finished this week the AOS novel, The End of Enlightenment. I'd been reading it over half term and I got it finished whilst I was waiting for my vaccine this morning. So it is the new Lumineth Realm Lords novel that takes place during the events of Broken Realms Teclis, the invasion of Hysh by the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and the prelude to that, the invasion of Shyish by the Lumineth Realm Lords. And it follows a Alarith Stone Mage whose sister died as a Venari High Warden during the assault on Shyish. They were killed by this Liege Cavalos. Liege Cavalos? Yeah, that's right. And part of that sister's soul was then bound into the Liege Cavalos because, Ossiarch absorb, transmit, and all that stuff with material and matter and all that stuff. Well, they do this a lot. But the Stone Mage is met in a vision by none other than Teclis. Teclis and Selenar visit this Stone Mage Kareth in a dream and basically say, this Liege Cavalos has to die. Because the Liege Cavalos is destined to kill and destroy the Light of Eltharion, which is the Hollow Knight miniature, by the way, if you didn't know, and the spirit of Eltharion the Grim, the Griffin Rider Half Lord from Warhammer Fantasy, now in a new form. He is destined to kill that, and that would have been a big deal because the Light of Eltharion goes on to kill Archon the Black, the Mortarch of Sacrament. Well, banish Archon the Black, I should say. You can't really kill a Mortarch. Which ultimately then helps to lead to Teclis's ultimate victory over Nagash at the end of the Broken Realm saga. So, essentially, Kareth has to kill this Liege Cavalos. And the Liege Cavalos is somehow drawn to the Stone Mage because of the fact his sister's soul is now inside the Liege Cavalos. And it actually really makes the battles in this very clear, because the Ossiarch are very regimented and the Lumineth are very regimented, and they have their ways and tactics and means. And so it makes the battle scenes, which I always find really hard to read and then visualize, they're very clear in terms of what's happening. I cannot remember the author off the top of my head. I'm looking for the book to see if I can remember the author's name, and I can't remember. I think it's Richard Strachan. They do a very good job of laying out the battlefield and what's happening at any given time. So where are the Ossiarch flanking? Where are the Lumineth counterattacking? How big are the two forces? Where are the main players? Rather than just focusing on what the generals and heroes are doing, which means that you can lose track of where they all are relative to each other, it allows the reader to track the battle rather than the generals, which is really useful because then you can get a general ebb and flow of how the battle's going, which is great. So the first engagement is the Ossiarch taking a Lumineth village and sacking it and burning it to the ground, using the bone matter for their own purposes, as they do. But they really struggle. A tiny Lumineth force really actually manages to hold them up for quite a while. The Lumineth tactics are very good, trademark. And so in the later battle, when they fight in a valley, it's the Stone Mage and the Liege Cavalos' first sort of true battle against each other. The Lumineth do really, really well until they don't. There is a collapse, and eventually the mages have to throw up what I believe is I think it's either a prismatic palisade or some other type of fortification wall using magic that blocks the Ossiarch off whilst they retreat. This sends the Stone Mage, who's been trying to use death magic to get his sister's soul back, into a death spiral. He realizes that to unpick his sister's soul from Liege Cavalos would be to destroy her and it, and he can't do it. He can't bring himself to do it. He goes into a bit of a spiral. He loses the favor of the mountain, which is Ulthalanor, I think. And he ends up basically traveling down the mountain into his own pit of despair, where he encounters a shade, almost. A feral creature, which he recognizes as himself. This is him at his worst. This is what he could become. This is his Okari Dara, which is the name for the Spirefall, where the elves of Hysh rose too high into their arrogance and then turned their weapons of mass destruction on each other, leading to the fall of Hysh and the invasion by Slaanesh, as you do. And he has to face this down and sort it out. And this leads to another battle, which eventually ends when the Ossiarch are thoroughly outflanked and trounced, including the introduction of a Spirit of the Mountain, which does exactly what you'd expect it to do, go on a massive smashy rampage. And the brother lets his sister go, pulls her spirit out, destroying the Liege Cavalos from the inside, but destroying her spirit in the process, asking for forgiveness, goodbyes, etc. And he then goes off on his own quest to do something. It's not made entirely clear. Whilst he leaves the temple he's been on Ulthalanor in the care of his apprentice and the Stone Guard, and etc., etc., etc. It's, in terms of AOS fiction, it's half character drama. It's a lot more character drama, but punctuated by very, very good fight scenes. Very good mass battle scenes, and I really, really liked it. It's not as good as the Realm Lords novel called Realm Lords. I think that's better. I think that's a lot better. But that's because Realm Lords is really good at its character insights and the small scale storytelling it does, and the journey the character goes on, I think is really good in that book. So it's not as good as that because it's sort of tied around another event, that being Broken Realms Teclis. So I enjoyed End of Enlightenment. probably not going to pick it up again for a good long while like I would Realm Lords or Court of the Blind King. Next on my list, I've either got Stormvault. I may pick up the new Dominion novel just to tie me in with AOS 3. Or I may look at some 40k fiction, but obviously timings will tell on that one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's one of those things with reading AOS fiction is that you either know what's going on or you don't.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I kind of just talked over and didn't really let you step in there at any point.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, it's one of those, it's like, I love talking about AOS and I love reading AOS. I also know that if you're not keeping up, especially now with Broken Realms, all of that story makes little to no sense if you don't understand the fact that Broken Realms is happening. It, like, the epilogue mentions, oh, by the way, Teclis also beat Nagash. What? Like, if you haven't read Broken Realms, then Teclis just banished Nagash. It's kind of a big fucking deal. But it's a throwaway line at the end because people assume you've read Broken Realms Teclis, where they do spell it out in detail. So tie-in fiction, not always the best, especially when you're tying it into events that must take place in another book. I think this is the thing. I don't know what the Indomitus novel was like for that, but when there is a chain of events that must be set in motion, and this will be interesting with the Ghazghkull novel, actually, because you said that it's going to involve the Ragnar Blackmane incident that we already know about from Saga of the Beast. So it will be interesting to see how well they can tell that story around the framework of this already happened. I know they've done that already with other events I won't mention because of spoilers, but it will be interesting when you're trying to tie into external fiction from a series of build-up books. It can be quite difficult to tie them in and make the story good as a standalone. And End of Enlightenment's good, but it really, 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 really benefits from the fact that I've read Broken Realms Teclis.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not such of a good thing. But anyway. Right. Shall we do some questions, do you think?
Yeah, we can try and do that, see if my voice holds out.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. So if this gets cut short, please do accept our apologies, guys. But we'll go as far as we can. Okay. What would you think of Black Library doing a Siege of Terror style series where multiple authors write one book in a series of some kind of a non-canon, just for fun 40k ending? They make it very clear that it's all non-canon, it's just for fun. You could call it 40k Illusions or something like that, like equivalent to DC's Elseworlds or something like that. Or each writer writes their own headcanon of the end of the setting. Would that interest you?
Potentially, but at the same time, it's like 40k continuity is muddled enough as it is.
I mean, as long as they said very clearly, this doesn't happen, this will not happen, this is non-canon, this is a what-if scenario, it could
I think it'd probably be better as a series of short stories rather than like a series of novels.
Yeah, or even it could just be a series of visions, like it could be The Emperor's Dreams, where he sees all the different ifs, buts, and maybes of what if this had happened or what if this hadn't happened. He sees all the futures that could have been, or that could possibly be.
So basically, it's just the Chronoclast from the Legacy of Kain games.
I guess so. Okay. Do Genestealer hybrids have souls?
Are they living organisms?
I mean, Tyranids have souls, don't they?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Because remember, the creation of a soul is a biological process, because if you don't have a soul, it's due to the fact you have the pariah gene, which inhibits the development of a soul.
Quite so.
Actually, another point is like they would have a soul, because what's a strong indication of a powerful soul? If you have a powerful soul, you tend to manifest psychic abilities, don't you? If you have a powerful soul.
Yes,
souls
very
of psychics
true.
are stronger. And we know for a fact that certain animals in the 40k universe have psychic abilities, like the fear cat from the Fantasy Flight games, which is basically not the Necromunda Fear Cat, the other Fear Cat, the one that's basically a giant psychic tiger. And if that's a tiger with psychic abilities, therefore that tiger must have a soul, because it's powerful enough to have a psychic ability.
Yeah. Okay, I saw one that I quite liked. Do machine spirits exist only in human technology, or do they also exist within Tau, Necron, Eldari, or even Orc technology?
Okay, depending on the source, some sources say that, according to Adeptus Mechanicus, the belief is that machine spirits only exist in human technology, which is why Xenos technology is seen as abhorrent and unholy. But some sources say that Xenos technology has their own machine spirits, but they're not considered true machine spirits because, again, they are alien. And some sources say they just have them as well. Again, it depends on the source, but I like the idea it's not a true machine spirit because it's unholy and alien.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's just the fact it's just a belief by the Mechanicus rather than they actually do have a legitimate spirit. It's just they believe it has a spirit.
Because then how do you explain Titans overcoming their princess?
I was going to get to that. Because we know for a fact that larger pieces of technology like vehicles do have legitimate machine spirits, because there was that, a big cross-section diagram of a Land Raider, and one of the components is that of the machine spirit, which is like a little black box. It's because large pieces of technology incorporate organic matter as well as purely technological components, and because it has organic matter, it can generate its own quote-unquote soul.
Right.
That's to grossly oversimplify things. Because, I'm sure you see him with the, that cross-section of the, automaton from Mechanicus, that cross-section is you see all the components, and it's also got, organic components inside as well.
Yeah, actually, there was questions about, how the Mechanicus check that there's organic matter inside their machinery, and there was another one about...
It probably gets implanted straight away, when in the manufacturing process.
Yeah, I saw a question about it. And another one, actually staying with the Mechanicus, with the Dark Mech this time. Say a Dark Mech tech priest had reduced themselves down to a tiny amount of organic matter, say their brain, just their brain. Everything else was mechanical. And they somehow got elevated to demonhood. Would that be different than a normal demon prince, like biological matter infused with warp power and in armor, or would it be different in some ways, where it would be like a giant mechanical monster that's demonically possessed with basically no organic matter?
It'd probably end up being something similar to an obliterator, I would imagine.
But the thing is, with an obliterator and mutilators and all that, is there is organic matter there to be warped into demonic matter. When machines become demonically possessed...
Here's the thing, remember though, certain pieces of technology, when they get corrupted by chaos, start growing organic growths.
True, that's true, but we also see a lot with a lot of corrupted demon engines and the like. Particularly, I'm thinking of Hellbrutes. All their fleshy bits come from the pilot, first and foremost, and they can use that. I know what you mean, though.
Because, there's been, official pictures, Chaos ships, for example, the ship's now flesh and it's got giant eyes all over it and stuff like that. I mean, just look at the Terminus S, for example. Yeah,
true. It would be really interesting. I think Obliterator is probably quite a good frame of reference. I always think of it, though, you warp the mechanical stuff to be twisted into new forms, but then the fleshy bits have to come from somewhere else, because demonic matter manifesting itself as pure demonic matter is...
It could probably just grow from the brainstem or something.
Probably, mass multiplication of cells and then corruption and fine. But I think it would definitely be a lot more robotic in appearance than a normal demon prince would, at least initially, I think.
Also, I don't know if you saw the cross-section of that robot I just posted as well. You can see it in the head area, you can see the human skull in there as well.
Yes, I do, I see it. How do you think they're going to push the Tau lore forward? Do you believe they'll go down the Chaos Entity route or create a new unifying character, bring them back together? Will we have the Farsight Heresy 2, Electric Boogaloo? Where do you think the Tau are going?
I think where they're going, I think they're going to push more towards the more xenophobic aspects of the fourth sphere? Because that seemed to be the focus very briefly, wasn't it?
Kind of, yeah, but that fourth sphere were then sufficiently put down.
Even though some went to join the Enclaves, didn't they?
There were a few defectors got away, absolutely. But the commanders of the fourth sphere were forced to undergo some horrific ritual whose name I forgot off the top of my head. And all the fourth sphere units were redeployed to have no auxiliaries, whilst the fifth sphere got on with being the fifth sphere.
Apart from Okais, apparently, because he was fourth sphere. In fact, we don't know what happened to him after he got blown up by the Angels of Absolution.
Oh yeah, there'll be exceptions, absolutely, but majority of it is fourth sphere Tau fight on their own, fifth sphere fight with auxiliaries, typically.
To be honest, I want to see more stuff with Okais, because considering he's part of the Trinity, Farsight, Shadow Sun, and Okais, and Okais is the one with the least amount of development. I think literally the only book with him as a starring role was War of Secrets. I'm not counting the Fire Warrior novel because apparently that's a different Okais. Yeah,
and we're not counting the Dawn of War games because they exist in their own separate fucking continuity. So yeah, I think for me, they are either going to go one or two ways. I think one option is cut off Shadow Sun, so that there are now three separate Tau empires: Shadow Sun's Enclave, Farsight's Enclave, and the Core Empire. Let the Core Empire rise and fall into decadence and its own hubris as it gets stuck, unable to expand, and thus devours itself. That would be an interesting place to take the main empire, as the ethereal illusion shatters without anywhere to go. They're stuck. They've seen the fifth sphere get cut off. Their shining light, Shadow Sun, is gone. And they turn on themselves. Whereas the Farsight Enclaves, who have already abandoned that, watch it happen and announce themselves so that they become a refuge for those who are able to traverse the area around the Damocles Gulf. And they become a new force for themselves. But this means they attract more attention from the Imperium or whoever. And so they're then put onto their own defensive. Meanwhile, Shadow Sun's Enclaves, still pursuing that ideology, but being stuck in a grinding war, as discussed in Psychic Awakening 5, are stuck now grinding the way through Genestealer cults and Guard and all that stuff in the Nemyar Atoll. They're then forced to diverge as their ethereals start dying off. Because, how do you become an ethereal? Probably birth from the ethereals. But if the ethereals die like Farsight's did, what happens then? Do they have to undergo their own transformation under Shadow Sun's teachings and become their own version of the Farsight Enclaves? Or do they collapse in their own way? Or are they now so battle-hardened for being ground down fighting aliens constantly that they go down the xenophobia route that you discussed? The main empire eats itself as it can't hold itself together under the ethereal dream. The Shadow Sun Enclaves get mired in xenophobia because they just can't stop having to fight the humans and just die, you stupid humans. And the Farsight Enclaves become their own separate haven of sorts, but also they're mired in the chance of Farsight becoming corrupted, where he knows the risk of the warp. And this is where you bring Tau Psychers in. They start exploring this other realm as Farsight gets whispers in his head. And this is where you introduce Chaos Tau and Tau Psychers as that being just starts to work on the one that the survivors of the Fourth Sphere who came back to the Empire and then defected talked about. They start spreading that, and Tau Psychers begin to just slowly, gently pop up. Possession becomes more common, and Chaos Tau spring up there. Whereas and this shows that the risk of, hang on, we brought in Psychers, and they can then have their own purges as they embrace demonic power and xenophilia in a different way, as sharing the power and the basking in the glow of the gods. And thank you for introducing us to all of this power. Watch what happened if you don't embrace this new vision. You die at the hands of the ethereals. And they hear of what's going on with Shadow Sun, and if only they had seen the light, they wouldn't be killing everything in front of them and becoming like the Gweila. And just, I don't know, I'm maybe going way too far into fanfiction territory, but that could be an interesting way to take them, like fully splinter them and watch each faction die under a different boot. Chaos, its own corruption, and xenophobia.
Fair enough. I always wanted to see something in regards to maybe like Okais, because Okais had gone essentially completely batshit insane and completely psychotic.
Absolutely.
Like maybe he's like started to basically become like effectively like a Tau equivalent of like the Drukhari, where basically he becomes like completely deranged and starts going around killing anything in his path, like leading like a band of like like-minded Tau from the Fourth Sphere, even to the point where he's like attacking other Tau, and it's like this guy's gone completely off the fucking rails. We need to do something about him. It's like maybe like he has a confrontation with either Shadowstun or Farsight in this regard as well. Like, okay, I know things have been bad, but you're going way too fucking far about this dude. And Kai's like, fuck you, I'm the living weapon, bitch. And a huge fight ensues.
Yeah, and it's one of those where, because they're now fighting alone, Kais would win. And it could really send ripples back through of, oh my god, Shadowstun, it would probably be Shadowstun just because of transport logistics, it would probably be Shadowstun. Shadowstun just lost.
There's an important thing to know about Okais. He's literally the Tau version of Doom Guy.
Yeah, he is mad, he is bad, and he will never ever lose.
And he was fully conscious in stasis for over 300 years.
Yeah, that would not have a positive effect on your mental state.
No. Even to the point where didn't he like scare the ethereal that was attached to the Fourth Sphere as well? It's like the ethereal was like, oh fucking hell.
I don't remember exactly what happened to the Fourth Sphere ethereals off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and reread it.
I can't remember if it was an ethereal or a warcast. Basically, they woke up Kais from stasis and they're like, oh shit, he's already awake. He's been awake for 300 years. He's lost his mind. Oh god.
Bleep.
Fuck. He's a nutter.
Yeah.
He's gone full Mike Tyson on our asses.
Right, okay. So there's a question here, and apparently there's something in Godblight that might suggest something, so I'm not going to go too deep in case there's a spoiler ahead. But question says, if the Chaos Gods cannot be defeated, which they can't, is it possible they could be purified? Force-fed a diet of positive emotion until they're no longer as dark, twisted, and vile as they used to be?
Well, in the Siege of Terror books, it was revealed that the Emperor's plan for the Astronomicon was to basically turn it into a huge weapon to purify the warp. I did mention this a few months ago.
Yeah, I feel like you did. It's just, it's been a few months. People forget.
Yeah. So maybe it's possible that the Emperor's intent is to try and purify the warp, because like the Astronomicon was originally intended as a weapon. It's like it being a beacon was just a beneficial byproduct. It's like, yeah, I'll just say that's what it was intended for. No one else needs to know that I was going to use it to effectively nuke an entire dimension. Because I am the Emperor and my plans are beyond your comprehension. Wiggity wiggity woo.
Indeed. No, Red Ones Go Faster is definitely a thing for all orcs, not just vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah, the Ghazghkull novel does actually reaffirm that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a discussion about organics being soul-based before. What about planets?
Well, apparently Fenris is a spirit. Apparently. It's entirely possible because, like, if you go by certain religious beliefs, like, according to some, religions, like, everything has a spirit, the world, trees, rocks, water, it all has a spirit. So, knowing 40k, gleefully being quote-unquote inspired by certain things, it's entirely possible that in the 40k universe, that planets do have their own world spirit. I'm not talking about the Exodite ones.
No, that's different again.
That's a different type of world spirit.
Yeah, and thinking about, like, demon worlds, for example. Like, demon worlds are twisted, corrupted hellscapes where the land itself is fully, pure warp energy and everything like that. It is almost like the planet has been possessed.
There is also that one demon world that is literally just a fat guy.
course. But yeah,
not.
but yeah, it's one of those things of like, you could imagine like particularly planets like Cadia. I feel like Cadia would be a really good example of like...
Well, not anymore, it won't be.
Well, okay, yes, not anymore. But like the idea of like Cadian spirit not just being like... Cadia is a world that has been through hell.
Literally.
Yeah. And it is a planet that could well have been broken and has been conquered and twisted and then redeemed, but still bears the scars of what it used to be. And, well, now the literal scars because it exploded. But I feel like that would be an interesting place to take certain worlds that maybe, if they've been so drenched in the power of the warp, they've been walked on by so much psychic power or fought over with such psychic power that power embeds into the earth, resonates, and takes its own form, kind of like the new twins of Slaanesh. Sinessa and Dexessa, there's like an offshoot of warp energy that coalesces into something. A entity that essentially is a planetary soul. I don't think you want it on every planet, because it would be a bit much, but planets like Terra, like Cadia, like Medringrad. I don't know. I just think it would be interesting as a place to take certain things.
I like the idea that the spirit of Katachan is so aggressive. It's like, literally the only reason why everything is so aggressive towards humans is because Katachan is literally saying, get off.
Yeah. Yeah, actually,
its spirit is literally encouraging every single life on the planet to purge itself of the human infestation.
Yeah, it's like, right, we seem to have a parasite living on our surface. Can we get rid of it, please? And basically, like, the Kazakhstan Devil is just its ultimate immune response.
The other world to the system is like, oh my god, Katachan, you got humans! Ew.
Hang on, we've all got humans too. Why aren't we doing... Oh, we don't care. Oh. Is that why we're all dying? Because we've been stripped of our resources and we didn't fight back? Yeah. Yeah, it is. So maybe Katachan had the right idea, didn't it? Yeah, probably. Oh, well.
Not even once. Just look at Terra, for example.
Yeah. Okay. There's one here that I think... I kind of wish Gav Thorpe was here because it would help us clarify. So according to Gav Thorpe, Gellerfield technology is produced by taking a psyker and putting that psyker in a catatonic state on the lower decks of a ship and processing their soul, essentially giving them the Drukhari treatment. And that's according to Gav Thorpe. So, in the Dark Age of technology, before the massive psyker explosion, how did they make Gellerfields? Did they even need Gellerfields, actually, as of another point?
They probably had their own, technologically based way of doing it without needing a psyker. But hang on, that being said, in Crisis of Faith, didn't Paul Malkiel come into contact with a Gellerfield generator?
He came into contact with, a warp drive.
Yeah. It was the Gellerfield generator that had the warp residue, and he touched the warp residue and ended up getting possessed. Yes,
that's pretty much right.
Yeah. I always had that mental image of it being more of just like an engine rather than a place where you shove a psyker in.
I mean, it could be that to create the Gellerfield, you need it requires psychic energy, obviously, because it's dealing with the warp. You need psychic energy from somewhere, and because you haven't got a sentient living soul to produce that psychic residue, you need something with a soul to create that energy in the first place. So it stands to reason that there is some form of psychic power required to generate a Gellerfield or a warp drive, because it needs to be warp capable, and that requires connections to the realm of souls, I guess.
Maybe they just get psychic babies and put them in battery blocks, plug them in.
I mean, it's 40k, I wouldn't put it past them.
But also, with that being said, I do want to also remind everyone, do you remember that time when Inquisitor Chevak killed an entire squad of Grey Knights with a baby?
You had to mention it, didn't you?
I do have to mention it because it's fucking hilarious.
I know. But it does raise an actual interesting question of, did the Dark Age of technology need Gellerfields? Because the warp was so much calmer back then.
It was calmer back then, but again, it wouldn't have been completely free of danger.
But maybe it was so low risk that it was just not deemed necessary. It was an acceptable risk. Like, yeah, it's kind of like crossing ships across oceans. It was just accepted that some of them were going to sink.
I still like to think that they had their own technological process that's just long been lost. Like, it was so advanced, it could replicate a Gelethio without actually needing a living psychic to do so.
I mean, that's the more likely reason. It's just an interesting thought. Did they need Gellerfields in the Dark Age of technology, given what the warp was doing?
I still say so, considering the fact that, other races, we know other races that utilise warp technology do have their own version of Gellerfields. I mean, the Orcs have their own Gellerfield technology, for example, but just most of the time they turn it off because, it's more fun to have demons fighting them.
True. And I mean, the Tau as far as I'm aware, the Tau still do the skim technique. I don't think they still don't have Gellerfield technology. They still do the skim technique, I think. I'd have to cross-check and read the new material, but I think they still do the warp skim rather than the warp dive. Right, that takes us to just under 2 hours, and I think just for my sake, I'd rather end it here rather than put you in any more risk, so...
Alright then. So, thank you very much to everyone who joined into this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
This has been Tactica Imperialis. Apologies if we worried you at any point.
And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.